Hey, you're right. Look, we do kind of match.
We do.
Oh.
I have a t-shirt on under here. I'm in a sweatshirt today.
Oh, you know what? Hey, the camera's rolling, and so is the podcast.
Yes, and if you're only hearing us, it's because I have a green t-shirt on underneath my black sweatshirt, and Steve has a polo shirt on that kind of matches, same color.
Yeah, and obviously those of you watching us on YouTube can go, "Well, look at that!" And Julia's chair even matches everything. So, and your Stanley Cup. Check it out. We're into light green, and these people are going, "What has happened?" You know what? It's like the Parent Pivot podcast has green as the color, and I don't know why we started on that.
This is true because I really love that apple green color.
Yep.
And we just happen to match today, but the chair does, and I forgot about the Stanley.
Yeah. Anyway, hey, you know what? We are here with the Parent Pivot podcast. Sorry we've taken so long to get into the intro.
Jabbering
We're
away.
just jibber-jabbering about jibber-jabbering.
Yes.
And stuff. So welcome to the podcast. Welcome to YouTube. Topic for today.
I believe you came up with this topic, and Steve really wants to talk about respect. We talked about grace last week,
right.
And you felt like respect kind of goes hand in hand with that.
Grace and respect do go hand in hand with that. And the more I kept thinking about it, I walk every morning. In fact, I roll out of bed, my feet hit the ground. Julia is still asleep. Right, sweetie?
Yes.
That's the way it's been for 36 years.
Yes.
And as I'm walking, I am listening to the Father. I'm playing some worship music. I am just talking about things, but I'm thinking about the podcast and going, hey, we talked about grace last podcast, and that was basically about, hey, when we give our adult kids grace, we really deepen our relationships with them.
Yeah.
And if you haven't listened to that podcast, go back and listen to it. But then I started thinking about the whole respect piece. And what came to mind was when our kids were little, I was teaching them go with me, folks, here, because when you ask Steve what time it is, he tells you how the clock is built. No, I promise you we are going somewhere, but there is a story here.
Yes.
And so as I look at you, I don't want you to rush me along.
Okay.
But in raising our kids, they all played T-ball, Little League.
Yes.
Even Jamie Lynn, our only girl, and in fact, when I would pitch to her underhand, she takes the pen away from me, making too many noises. I'd pitch to her underhand. She gets so mad at me. She's like, you can throw it to me overhand like you do the boys. And so I did, and she whacked them all over the place. Anyway, where am I going with Little League? Little League, because that was a big part of our lives.
A huge part of our lives
in
for
fact,
a long time.
There's a couple stories about Steve umpiring Little League baseball games while on family vacation.
Yes. We won't talk about that because umpiring was
my mistress.
Was his mistress. Yes.
Yeah. But where I'm going with this is there was one year when we got involved in the league, we would always try to get to the Western Regional Finals.
Yeah.
And of course we stopped short. But then as you get into any sport, as you're raising your kids, whether it's baseball or volleyball or softball or whatever, you're kind of in this new part of life where it's I never knew this stuff existed. Mm-hmm. So we started watching the Little League World Series. Mm-hmm. And I don't remember what year it was. I forgot to Google it before we came on the air. We're on the air.
We are on the air.
We are on the air. And there was a year when the Mission Viejo Little League team went and won it all. And the reason I'm pointing this out, what does this have to do with respect, Steve? Because you've taken 3.5 minutes already to get to the point. The coaches were treating all of these 12-year-olds like they were already in high school.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there going, as I watched those games that they were in, I said, this is amazing because they brought their talent level up quite a few more notches. They ended up winning the U.S. title that year, and I think the international one, they beat the international team as well. And I was just so impressed with these 12-year-olds that basically these adult coaches looked at these 12-year-old boys and said, you know what? We're just going to believe the best about you, expect that you can do things that normal 12-year-olds don't do, and they rose to the occasion. So that's the point. Thank you for being patient with that story. That's the point I want to make here with our adult kids. It's almost like the parent side of us, we wear a lens that looks at them, their kids.
Their children, yeah.
We took them home from the hospital. We changed their diapers. we groomed them up through toddlerhood and elementary school, and we watched all their games that they were in, concerts, whatever. They went
And then
into,
we put them in a box.
and they put them in a box, and we're
Like,
like, okay, we got this. We know who
You're
this child
this,
is.
you're this, you're
Right.
this. Yeah.
And that's the glasses that we wore. So some of us have never taken those glasses off.
Right.
And so what I want to do right now is I want to implore you with all of my heart. Okay, I'm looking in the camera on YouTube. I'm talking to the mic. I want to implore you with all of my heart to reach up and take those parent glasses off
Mm.
and put on the adult glasses. Now, notice I didn't say adult kids.
Mm.
When I think when you say adult kids, it's like I'm still going to keep a little bit of kids in, but put on the adult glasses and start looking at those offspring of yours that are now adults and believe the absolute best about them. I mean, treat them as the most respected people you would know in all your relationships,
Yeah.
whether they are acting that way or not. Now, maybe they're not there yet, but when you start believing the best about someone and you raise that bar higher, guess what that person's going to do?
They rise to the occasion.
You rise to the occasion.
Just like those little leaguers did.
Just like those little leaguers. And I did that too, because when I remember going into fifth grade, my fifth grade teacher was Mr. Wilson. I remember the first day in class when he was calling roll, he was going through the names and he gets to Steve Cummings. He goes, "There's another fine athlete that I know." And I'm thinking, what? I'm in fifth grade. What does he know about me? But you know what? It made me want to impress him. It made me want him to think more about me because he'd already given me respect.
Mm.
And that allowed me to rise to the occasion.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, all my friends heard those words too, which gave me even more respect. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about what we can do to shift and pivot from being those natural parents, which, again, we've all done. And again, I go back to this. Even if you're adult offspring, notice I'm not saying child. When your adult offspring doesn't meet your expectation, I say ignore it.
So I've got a story like that too.
Okay.
That actually involves you.
Uh-oh.
So when we were early married, and if any of you grew up in the church, like in my generation, and even younger, because I hear this from younger women too, when they are looking for a spouse, you hear this phrase all the time about being a spiritual leader. You got to look for a spiritual leader. You got to look for a spiritual leader. And so we find this person who we think is quote unquote a spiritual leader. And then you get married and you realize they're human. They aren't perfect. And I think a lot of young women who grew up in the church think a spiritual leader looks a certain way and is perfect in some way.
Yeah.
And so when we were newly married, I had that wrong expectation. And we had this conversation many times, I remember. And probably about 2, 3, maybe 4 years into our marriage, we went to a family life conference.
Okay, family life marriage conference.
Yes, which are great. I would highly recommend that. No matter how long you have been married.
Oh, they're awesome.
They're really great. But I remember, they send you back to your room to have these conversations and stuff. And I remember having this conversation with you about this.
Okay.
And I remember you looking at me and you said to me, "Honey, if you would just treat me like I am that, I think I would become more that."
I do. I remember that conversation.
Yeah.
I was wondering where you're going with the story, but I do remember that conversation.
So I had this epiphany at that moment and decided that's really what I needed to do. And I needed to stop putting this on him. And part of that is I'm responsible for me in any relationship. And so I can never put on anyone. And this is true of your adult offspring as well, that you cannot put on them what your relationship always looks like. You've got to take responsibility for the things that you have some control over, which is you and your responses and how you behave. And so in that moment, I had this epiphany and kind of changed things in how I approached you,
Right.
and stopped having that very unrealistic expectation and taking more responsibility for myself and whatever that meant, whatever a quote unquote spiritual leader is. Because really, that's,
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of a ridiculous
Right.
phrase, actually. Anyway, all that to say that through the years, I would say you became more of what I had dreamed you would be. That didn't mean he was responsible for me, but I became more respectful of who you were.
Right.
And part of that was me shifting my thinking and the way that I behaved.
Right.
So I assume that that's kind of similar to what you
Yeah.
are. Excuse me.
Yes.
Got to clear my throat.
No, I know. Yeah. I'm always prepared for that. No, that's exactly right. And a couple of things as you were even talking there reminded me that, there's a great book out there by Emerson Eggerichs. In fact, they also do marriage conferences on love and respect because women want to be loved and feel loved and men want respect. And so in some ways we sit there and say, well, you're supposed to respect me because I'm the spiritual leader.
And then I'll love you.
And then I'll love you.
And the women are saying, love me, and then I'll respect you.
Exactly. And so it becomes that thing. But where we're going with this is, and the way it dovetails into our relationships with our adult offspring is that they're not children anymore.
Right.
And I think there's a part of us, we've done podcasts on grieving. So there's a part of us that just doesn't want to let go of that past because it meant so much to us. A lot of us have always dreamt of I just want to be a mom. I just want to be a dad. That's been my dream. I watch my kids and they've got dreams to become actors and actresses and all these great things. I said, you know what? I'm living my dream.
Yeah.
I am living my dream right now. And so I'm just sitting back, enjoying watching what's going on. And our kids are having babies and we don't have to say anything to them. They know exactly what to do. The wives all talk to each other about what to do with this, that, and the other. And we just sit back. And the other day we went to the pumpkin patch with Florence. Yeah. And that was a lot of fun. But just sit back and just watch that all happen because that's what we want. We want to raise adult offspring into the next generations.
Right.
And they become our partners. And that can be hard to let go of that. And I think the harder we hold on to that, the more we continue to have those parent filter on. And what I'm saying is please destroy that, not destroy the memories. Please hear me. Don't destroy the memories. No. Cherish the memories. I'm just saying don't look at every moment, every day through a lens of these are my kids and they always have behaved that way because going with last podcast, we talked about grace. Give them room to grow. Expect the best out of them. And when you start but if you start granting them that they're already there, you really respect them, they're going to rise to the occasion. Yeah. And that's going to give you, years and decades of wonderful, healthy relationships like you've never seen before.
And remember in that process that they are still individuals. They still will not think like you and be like you. They will have their own thoughts, ideas, feelings, behaviors, all of those things. So, embrace that. Embrace the uniqueness of who they are.
Yeah.
I've always admired parents who so easily embrace their children's uniqueness. And I see that in our own son, Wesley, a lot. His kids are a little bit older, so I see how it's developing. And he is so good. They both are. He and Chelsea both. I shouldn't just say Wesley. He and Chelsea are so good at allowing their children to be who they are and to be able to express themselves and not shame them in any way. Yeah. We weren't always that good at that. We got very wrapped up in behavior a lot.
Right. This is why we're learning. This is why we have a podcast and why we have a YouTube cast of things to learn from our mistakes. But I think the big part of it is just, make a, like, here's a simple exercise. I would say sit down, find some quiet time, whether that's on a couch in front of the fireplace or on your back deck or at a lake or at the beach or somewhere, and just spend a good hour and just kind of jot down things that you love about your adult offspring and things. And then, find a way to communicate that with them. Like whenever we ever get a chance, I'll just, tell Wes, I said, you know what, you are such a great dad. I love how you do this and things. I never thought of doing that. And you're doing such a great job. And we see each other father to father. Yes, I'm Pop. They'll come to us and ask for advice or counsel when they need it. But right now it's like they don't need anything. You've done a great job.
Yeah.
You know what? It's like, hey, the less they're coming to you, great. But maybe if they're not coming to you, check the relationship. Is there any fractures going on there? Are we inserting ourselves way too much? But words of affirmation are my love language. And so is touch. So like even just the other day, I told Julie, I said, you know what? If I just got more hugs and kisses and you told me how wonderful I was, man, I can go for a whole nother month. Because she already believes that about me. But I think sometimes in our marriages and in our parent/partnering, we can get lazy.
Yeah.
And we don't.
We take it all for granted.
We take it for granted. We don't communicate it. But everybody likes to be told, "Atta boy, atta girl, you're doing a great job, and I love this about you. I love it when I see you do this." Or, tell them about a character trait. You are pretty incredibly faithful. You're a hard worker. You're persevering. One of our sons' first name is Garrison. And I keep reminding him, and we remind him over and over again, hey, remember what the word Garrison. Garrison is a fortress. It is a strong army, people. So when he's feeling a little bit insecure about himself, we just pour into him and remind him who he is. And he's like, oh, thanks. That's exactly what I needed. But he feels respected by us. And that allows him to just really thrive in his marriage and his family. And if you really want to build a legacy, mom and dad, grandma and grandpa out there as partners, that's the best thing you do is listen to last week's podcast on grace. And then obviously this one is just talking about, hey, let's just automatically, just like those little leaguers at Mission Viejo Little League, 12-year-olds doing stuff that a high school team was doing. I'm thinking, this is amazing. I've seen this on the high school field, but not on a little league field. And they just were like one, and they just rose to the occasion. Our adult offspring will do the same.
Yeah. So when we were talking about this topic, you said that you kind of wanted to relate it also to this period of time in the season that holidays are coming up.
Yes.
So how does the respect, we do have a whole separate podcast on the holidays.
From about a year ago.
About a year ago, we can put that in the show notes.
Yeah.
But what did you want to bring up with this idea of respect and the holidays?
Well, I would especially be talking to you partners out there who are in the middle of pivoting, as we just talked about, is if your adult offspring just got married this past summer or recently, or is about ready to get married here this fall or whatever. It's like now all of a sudden life is going to change here real quickly because we're a few weeks away from Thanksgiving. And then a month later we have Christmas. And as you and I have talked about, I mean, we're still even seeing it within our own family. I remember with Wes and Chelsea, they were like, hey, we want to have our own Christmas time together. I think it was even before they had kids, right?
Oh, yeah. It was their first year of marriage.
Yeah. I mean, listen to what we did. We always wanted to go out and we opened the pajamas on Christmas Eve and we all had the same pajamas. Everybody loved them. It was the one gift we opened Christmas Eve. And then we got to Denny's on 17th and Tustin and Santa Ana and we wore our pajamas to breakfast. And then we'd come home and open gifts. Yeah. We've done that for years. I mean, even now that the kids are married, we've still done it. But now there's been some shifting going on. Now we could sit there and demand, no, we have to do it this way. I'm not going to pound on the table because Julia will go, that's making too much noise on the mic. But it's like, no, we have these traditions and you must follow through with them. And now we're creating a little bit of stress and strain because now there's another family involved. And your daughter or son-in-law, they do things differently. Yeah. They have their own traditions. And that family speaking in that side, this family speaking this side, and that poor new family who we want to see leave and cleave is kind of crushed in the middle.
Yeah.
And all they want to do is please both sets of parents. And they're not happy because it's not a fun holiday season.
Right. So and part of the problem is the parent that's demanding that tradition doesn't change is afraid to let go of the tradition.
Right.
It's hurtful to change something or to do a different tradition. And, you know,
and it feels like you're losing something.
Like the pajama thing. Everybody through the years, I think, has started doing the matching pajama thing. And you know what? Part of what led me last year to let the kids know, okay, this is the last time we're going to do this. I think I'm kind of done with this. And part of that is they're becoming their own family unit where they want to maybe get their own pajamas with their own family unit. And so I don't want to push that on them. It's a great, fun, memory that we will always hold on to and look at the pictures and laugh
Yep.
at the funny different pajamas we've
Right.
gotten through the years. But I am not going to keep pushing this where that has to happen.
Well, and also we have the dynamic that, 3 of our 4 kids are on the other side of the country. And so a lot of times we're not together on Christmas Day.
Right.
So we're doing it via Zoom, and we got to ship things and da.
Yeah.
And I think even moving forward, when we get to the next Christmas, when we're all together, it might be, we'll pull that out of the hatch and go, hey, remember when we used to do this? And
Yeah,
that would, maybe we'll see. We'll cross that bridge again. But it doesn't hurt us as mom and dad that we're not doing that. So what I'm trying to say is here, be flexible, and the first step is as your newly married adult offsprings have happened. Ask them what they want to do.
Respect them by asking.
Hey, what do you guys want to do for the holidays? You guys talk it over, and they're a new family unit. They are to leave and cleave and cut the cords emotionally, physically, everything. So now they become closer together, just as we did when we got married and things. So ask them and be respectful of their wishes. Hey, we're going to do Christmas Eve at our in-laws and Christmas Day with you, or whatever for Thanksgiving. If you're in the same cities, maybe they're going to try to do both, but leave it up to them.
Yes.
Adjust the times, flex with the dinner times as much as you can, but show them respect by saying, we're leaving this up to you, and things. And then they can discuss what they want to do between the two families and what that looks like.
And to feel that freedom, they shouldn't feel so much pressure. And if you, as the parent, are being entitled, and I'm going to use that word because we often use that word entitled for the younger generation, but if you're demanding this, you are being an entitled person. So, respect them, that. And if you have bought into the idea, well, I'm the elder in the family and they need to honor me, that's not what honoring your parents is. Honoring your parents is, respecting them, being kind to them, things like that. It doesn't mean that you have to do what they say.
Yeah.
There's a big difference there. So please be aware of that. And please go back.
If you're using that as a power play, that's manipulation.
Yeah. So please go back and listen to that other podcast about
we'll
the holidays. If this is something that you're foreseeing might be an issue, go ahead and go back and listen to that. And
again, if you have a big family gathering and all of a sudden you get back that, hey, they can't make dinner at 2:00, but they'll be there for dessert at 6, say, great. That's awesome.
All we want to do is see you.
The goal here is to be together.
Yeah.
And if somebody has to leave early and you miss it, celebrate the day, celebrate every member of the family, enjoy being together. It will not always be perfect the way you want it. And that's okay. If we hold things loosely with palms open and hands up, you're going to enjoy your relationships, your times together much better than you are with clenching fists and demanding that things happen my way.
Right.
You're just going to run into trouble.
Right.
And they're going to see it. They're going to feel it. And maybe next year they're going to go, you know what? We couldn't handle either one. So we're going to go to the other side of the world for a holiday. I don't know. And for us, for example, this Christmas, we're changing plans.
Yeah. I think we said that a couple of weeks ago, actually.
Yeah. Our kids are going to be all with their in-laws. And so I looked at my beautiful bride of 36 years. I said, let's go to the beach. Let's go to a destination place for Christmas.
So we're going to be alone for Christmas.
And we're going to enjoy that. And will we at some point go, miss the family today? Probably.
Definitely.
Yeah. And then we'll go put our feet in the water and go, okay.
Or we'll make the decision, you know what, we won't do this again. We'd rather fly across country and be with one of the kids.
Right.
Or, something like that. So,
but anyway, the key here has been about respect. It's about being already esteeming your adult offspring, taking off your parent glasses, putting on your partner glasses, treating them with great respect, in humility, with great grace. Oh my gosh, the rewards are I can't even begin to tell you the rewards and the great feelings you're going to have when we make that pivot. So I can't implore you enough to do that. If you guys have any questions, thoughts, comments like, hey, we love that podcast. Would you direct message us on either Instagram or Facebook and even Gmail? Everything's at Parent Pivot Podcast. That's even our Gmail account, Parent Pivot Podcast at gmail.com, Instagram, Facebook. We'd love to hear from you and share this podcast with your friends, because I know there are families that struggle with this holiday stuff. I know there's a lot of families and adult offspring that struggle with, my parents don't respect me. And maybe sometimes, maybe like, gosh, my adult offspring is not really.
Maybe they aren't respectful.
Yeah, maybe they're not being respectful to you, and maybe it's hard for you to find some things to respect them about. But I tell you, if you really look hard,
work at it.
Yeah, I mean, find some things and begin making that incremental change in your heart to see them that way.
Yeah.
And when you begin to do that, God's going to honor that, and you're going to see so much more. And you might even open up conversations. They're going to see you differently. They're going to begin to treat you differently. And your relationships are going to become much more healthier and deeper and everything else. Much more. See, everybody, I married a Nazi grammar.
Grammar Nazi.
A grammar Nazi. See, I can't even say that right. A grammar Nazi.
Okay.
I can't tell you how many times that happens.
I know. I just want to say this one more thing. Please don't listen to us and think that this is easy, because it's not. And we realize that, so many times when you hear anecdotes or just do this, you think, oh, well, you make it sound so easy. It's not. And we know that. And this is growth on our part as parents, that we need to grow and learn. And don't ever tell yourself that this is just who I am, or I can't change, I'm too old to change, because that's just a bunch of hullabaloo. So
that's a nice way of saying it.
That's a word you haven't heard a lot lately, huh?
Hullabaloo.
Anyway, I just want to throw that in there, because sometimes when I listen to things, I'm like, yeah,
are you crazy?
That's so easy.
No. These are things that we have done ourselves, and we find great value in them, and we wouldn't stand behind this mic or behind the screen and not come to you without being transparently authentic and honest. That's the basis of our podcast and our YouTube cast, and that's why we're here to share those things, and being counselors kind of helps too, because we're always looking inwardly, like, how can I change? I can't expect someone else to change. But anyway, we're grateful that you guys listen. We're grateful that you watch. We're grateful. Can you click the subscribe button here on the YouTube cast and share us with your friends on the podcast platform you're listening to us on. And as you get into the holidays, just be thinking about that. Anything else?
No, I think that's great. I think next time we were going to.
Oh yeah, let's give them a little preview. What are we going to talk about?
We're going to talk about social media.
Yes.
And maybe some of the do's and don'ts, and yada, yada,
because we've heard some stories and met with some folks on the younger generation about what the older generation has done. And we need to talk about that. So look for us next Tuesday for another edition of the Parent Pivot Podcast.
Bye.